Ever wanted to invest in a shophouse that's worth more than $50 million? Where's the best place to consider and what must you look out for? You're watching Savills Shares. Welcome to Savills Shares. Today we have Hui Yee, Executive Director of Investment Sales and Capital Markets at Savills Singapore, to share more on her expertise on shophouses. Welcome, Hui Yee.
Thank you, Jack. Pleasure to be here.
So to start off with, give us the lay of the land. How many shophouses are there in Singapore and where exactly are they located?
Well, before diving into the numbers, I think it's worth appreciating how these buildings have really stood the test of time. They are not just physical structures. They truly reflect Singapore's multi-layer history from colonial days to post-independence growth. Today, there are fewer than 7,000 shophouses in Singapore, so they are actually quite limited in number. You'll find them, mostly concentrated in three key historic districts: Kampong Glam, Chinatown, and Little India. But these three areas weren't just chosen by chance. They each play a unique role in Singapore's early development. But beyond these core districts, other areas, for example, Jalan Besar, Geylang, even the east coast of Katong area, also feature clusters of shophouses with their own distinct character and history.
Sounds like you are giving a history lessons on how the shophouses come about. So tell me, how do these different conservation categories affect a shophouse investment potential?
Each conservation category, be it historical district, residential historic district, or secondary settlement, they each have their own unique framework that affect a shophouse's potential in different ways. For instance, historic district locations such as Chinatown or Little India tend to see strong foot traffic and high visibility, often aligning with commercial or tourism-related users. That can appeal to investors looking for long-term stable rental demand and future capital growth, though the acquisition costs and competition are relatively high. For residential historic district, the locations such as Emerald Hill or Blair Plains, a lot of the emphasis are on the livability. These areas attract mostly owner-occupiers or niche tenants who value historical setting, which translate to long-term stability and prestige, even though the rental yields aren't as aggressive. Meanwhile, for secondary settlement, the shophouses there offer more flexibility in terms of users or pricing. That could appeal to investors looking for growth opportunities or adaptive reuse potential. But ultimately, each conservation category has its own regulatory context, audience appeal, and usage profile. So the investment potential really depends on what the investors are looking for, be it preservation, income, or transformation.
And do the usage of these different areas that the shophouses are residing upon impact the kind of yield?
It does, but over the years, we see that shophouses, in terms of the usage, is getting a lot more flexible. We can see that the planning authority are quite supportive of different users in a shophouse. Some of the users, like for example, F&B, dining, or maybe, for example, for a role of adjoining shophouses, you can even convert it into a hotel or service apartment or students' hostels. So this kind of usage generally will command a slightly premium rental yield as compared to other users.
And earlier on you said that the cost can be quite high. What's the range of costs that you have experienced in terms of buying and selling of these shophouses?
Well, the investment quantum really depends on the location. Generally, in District 1 and 2, the CBD area, each individual shophouses cost approximately 10 to 20 million, depending on the land tenure. For shophouses located at the city fringe area, like for example, Kampong Glam, Little India, they are a lot more palatable because the land area for the shophouses located in this area are slightly smaller. So quantum-wise, for city fringe shophouses usually range from about 5 to 10 million.
Wow, that's quite affordable.
Well, it is.
When you said about land tenure, can you explain
Mm.
a little bit more about that? What do you mean?
So for shophouses in Singapore, they are usually sits on three different types of land tenure. The first one is freehold, which means estate in fee simple. You get to own the freehold shophouse for as long as you want. Second one is 999-year leasehold. In the eye of the valuer, 999-year leasehold is as good as a freehold tenure, because generally for 999-year leasehold shophouse, the balance tenure you still have a good 800 years to go. And the last one would be 99 years leasehold shophouse. These are the shophouse they're predominantly located in the Tanjong Pagar area, like for example, Duxton Road, Craig Road, the main Tanjong Pagar Road area. Most of these shophouses come with 99-year leasehold tenure with a
Right.
balance of about 65 years.
I see. So what makes shophouses unique in Singapore's urban fabric compared to other commercial assets?
Shophouses are really the soulful storyteller of Singapore's streetscape. Unlike modern commercial buildings that are mainly designed for efficiency, shophouses carry with them, a blend of history, culture, and identity. You can't just walk past a shophouse, without pausing to admire its ornate facades, its timber shutters, and the 5-foot walkway. It is the personality there that, you just don't get it in a glass office tower. Now, beyond aesthetics, shophouse also function differently too. Think of them as hybrid spaces, right? Historically, you had businesses on the ground floor and then family live upstairs. Now, that mixed-use DNA is still very relevant today, right? Often you see shophouses on the ground floor, you have cafes, you have fine dining restaurants, and then on the upper floors, you have private offices. So it's really like a part trophy, part toolkit. And it's because of this mixture, this mix of heritage charm with adaptable usage that really makes shophouse unique in Singapore urban fabric. To give you a very interesting example, one of my clients purchased a shophouse from me with the vision to transform the shophouse into a social impact hub. So he created a very welcoming spaces that houses event area, project rooms, and dedicated counseling rooms. It's a thoughtful reimagining of traditional shophouse.
Right.
Trying to blend, collab, create, care, and community all under one roof.
Wow.
Yeah.
Definitely something very different from what you get in a traditional shophouse.
Yes, yeah.
Okay. Well, I mean, I remember, just to sidetrack a little bit, like my mother grew up in a shophouse because my grandfather used to operate a shop below, and then they live upstairs.
Yes.
But this was in the Kampong Glam area. So I know exactly what you're referring to.
Yeah. To share something interesting, recently I met an ultra high net worth individual from Indonesia. He shared with me that he grew up in a shophouse back home. And he is deeply drawn to Singapore shophouses, because of how well the shophouses in Singapore are preserved and also the nostalgic value that they hold to him.
It's good that you talk about your Indonesian client, because I'm going to ask, what sort of buyer demographics are currently most active in the shophouse category? Is it institutional clients, family offices, or private investors?
Great question. The short answer, it's all of the above, but for different reasons.
Right.
What's fascinating, it's with fewer than 7,000 shophouses across Singapore, scarcity alone has turned them into a prestige asset. So we are seeing a very diversified pool of buyers. The most active shophouse buyers are the family offices and high net worth individuals who see shophouses not just as an investment, but as a legacy asset.
Right.
But there are also many niche funds focused solely on shophouse. It is that specialized.
And what are the key features or characteristics that investors should look out for when evaluating shophouse opportunities?
There is always a checklist that seasoned investors run through. I think first of all, it's the zoning and the usage flexibility of a shophouse. Shophouses, they are zoned commercial, offer flexibility for users, for example, like F&B, dining, concept lifestyle shops, offices, wellness, even like design studio, dance studio. But another key point is commercial zone shophouses have no restriction on foreign ownership. Yeah. So it basically gives international buyers a rare opportunity to not just buy Singapore real estate, but also to own a piece of Singapore history. Yeah. Second point, it's the condition and the potential of shophouses matter too. Some investors, they love a good restoration project, but many of the buyers, they prefer turnkey unit that have already been upgraded with modern M&E while retaining the heritage value of the shophouse. And I think another key point to take note will be the investors' required rate of returns. Just now we briefly mentioned about the differences between 99 and freehold shophouses. A 99-year leasehold shophouse will give you a slightly higher return as compared to a freehold one, usually about 100 basis point higher than that.
Well, speaking of returns, it is quite interesting to note that conservation shophouses typically offer gross yields of less than 3%, with prime units yielding below 2%. How do you justify this investment to clients who are concerned about returns?
It is a really valid concern, especially given the lower yields vis-a-vis other commercial assets. But the thing with shophouses is that you are not just buying the building, you are investing in a unique asset class with long-term horizons. There is this capital appreciation factor. Conservation shophouses are appreciating in value over time due to their scarcity and cultural significance. Yes, the rental yield might be low, but the long-term growth appreciation is going to be significant.
Well, I remembered Jeremy Lake, who was on our show last year, and he's the managing director of Savills Investment Sales and Capital Markets, once alluding to me that when you invest in a shop house, the yields can outweigh that of investment in art, namely because you have rental yield. Do you agree with that kind of reasoning?
Absolutely. When you invest in art, you are typically banking on the capital appreciation with little to no income along the way. Shophouses, on the other hand, offer a dual benefit. You get rental income while benefiting from the capital appreciation. It's like buying a piece of art in the form of real estate, but with cash flow.
Wow. We can do with more of that. So now, according to the URA figures, total transaction value of shophouses fell to about 600 million last year, which is about half of 2023 figures. Why do you think that is?
To be honest, the slowdown was definitely expected. The money laundering case have raised concern and triggered a wave of caution across the market. Many buyers took a wait-and-see approach, using the time to reassess their position. At the same time, shophouse sellers, many of whom have the strong holding power, were not in a rush to sell. So we saw a moderation in market activity. If you don't have urgency on either side, it creates a natural lull.
Right.
The good thing is, the dust have largely settled from the receivership proceedings involving the money laundering case. The fundamentals of shophouses are still strong. Limited supply, heritage value, the enduring appeal of shophouse and the asset class are all in order. With things stabilizing, we expect to see transaction volume to pick up as market momentum returns.
Right. That's very optimistic.
We are positive on the outlook.
Great. Some transactions in the second half of last year were not reported because there was no caveats being lodged. What percentage of the market remains off the record, and why do you think buyers prefer this approach?
It's actually very hard to pin a percentage on transactions that are off record. But there are a couple of reasons why buyers prefer such approach. One big factor is SPV, special purpose vehicle sale. In these transactions, shophouses are being transferred through corporate entity share sale rather than at asset level. For this kind of transactions, they don't have to lodge a caveat, so they can keep things off public record. Another reason is shophouse buyers tend to avoid public visibility. This is especially common in high-end shophouse market where anonymity is the key driver. Whether is it to keep a low profile, to protect their financial details, or even structure a deal that's a little bit more flexible on its way, keeping things off the record can offer a lot of advantages in certain cases.
So what are some misconceptions or pitfalls that first-time buyers of shophouses should be aware of?
Buying a shophouse is unlike buying a typical residential or commercial property. Shophouses has its own unique legal, regulatory, technical, and structural pitfalls that investors should really be aware of. I think the first main concern is, the approved use of a shophouse. The owner of shophouses or the users of shophouses must comply with what the authorities have sanctioned is used for. For example, Jack, today you are going to buy a shophouse and looking to convert the ground floor into an F&B space. You need to put in a proper change of use to the relevant authorities. But here's the catch. The authorities have the discretion to reject such applications. So it's always a good idea for investors to speak to an experienced property consultant to confirm what's allowed and what is not.
Right.
An experienced property consultant can help you to understand the legal and planning landscape of properties users. The last thing that you want is to buy a shop house only to find out you can't use for your intended purpose. Another key concern would be structural integrity of conservation shop houses. These properties require structural survey every 5 years to ensure they are safe and sound. So as part of the due diligence, investors should always request for the latest structural report. To invest in shophouse, I feel like investors should dig a little deeper beyond the surface. It's about trying to understand and avoid the pitfalls on the shophouses. Once you have done that, you can enjoy the rewards of owning a heritage asset.
So what's one memorable transaction or project involving a shophouse that you feel truly reflects the soul of this asset class?
One of the projects that especially close to my heart is House of Tanuki, a national monument here in Singapore, which is also the last remaining 4 grand mansions in Singapore. What's truly special about this project is that it has been married to the right buyer, someone who is deeply committed to restoring and preserving the property. Historically, House of Tanuki has never been open to the public. So the buyer plans to convert part of the property to a coffee place, allowing the public to come in and admire this stunning heritage property, national monument. I just find like it's a beautiful way of preserving the heritage of the property, where allowing the future generations to experience and appreciate the history and culture embedded in this space.
Well, when it opens, I'll be first in line.
I'll be the first, you'll be the second.
Okay, okay, it's a date.
Yeah.
Okay. Now, if you're given a chance to speak to your 21-year-old self, what advice would you say to her?
That's a very powerful question. I would say to her, don't be afraid to dream big, just like you always have. Don't be intimidated. Your voice, your idea, your presence, they all matter. And lastly, don't let the world make you smaller than you are.
Very wise lessons. Looking back, is there anything you would go back and say yes to or no to?
Yes, for sure. I would say yes to new challenges, new experiences, and person who push me to grow. Life always have a way of surprising you when you're willing to embrace the unknown. On the flip side, I would say no to anything that drain my energy or doesn't align with my value. I learned it the hard way that sometimes certain opportunities just don't deserve your time. Yeah. Saying no can be as powerful as saying yes. It's about protecting your peace and your purpose.
Seems like you have lots of wise words for us and for yourself.
Thank you.
Thank you for sharing them.
Thank you, Jack.
And thank you for joining us today on Savills Shares. You can catch all the episodes of Season 1 and Season 2 on YouTube Music as well as Spotify. Remember to subscribe to Savills Singapore on YouTube and follow us, Savills Shares, on Spotify. Till the next episode, God bless. This podcast is for general information only and should not be taken as professional advice. Savills accept no responsibility or liability for any direct or indirect or any consequential loss from the use of, reference to, or the reliance on this podcast or its content.